Hey everybody, welcome back to another 10-minute Marvel video. I'm Petter, and today I'm going to be talking about Avengers Doomsday, rumors, leaks, and other things that kind of have popped up in the last week or so. I honestly probably could do this video every week with the different rumored castings and things like that, but I wanted to touch on it this week because you might have heard about this concept art leak that allegedly happened. Now, to give kind of some context, and I'm not actually deep into this, I haven't spent time researching, looking to see what it was. This was that there was a concept artist who posted some of these things on their site. I don't know where their site was in particular, but of course people found it and were like, ooh, is this what we're going to have here for the MCU? And I believe it was taken down like pretty quickly. And it's one of those things where it's like, we don't like to cover it here on 10 Minute Marvel because I like to cover news and rumors. Leaks are kind of getting around that. We actually kind of set how we were going to handle stuff with Deadpool and Wolverine. And that's going to be the same coming up for here Secret Wars and Doomsday, since they're starting filming Doomsday next month. But I really don't want to post leaks. We're not going to be sharing set photos, anything like that, that doesn't come from like an official source that's going to get you hyped. But with this leak, in quotes, that occurred, the Russos have come out and said that no, this is not actual concept art for anything. I take that with a minor grain of salt, but I do think it's more likely there's an artist who is like, oh, I have some ideas of what they might be doing. I'm a comic fan. Let's create some concept art. And whether or not they meant for it to be kind of run with as, hey, this is concept art for the movie proper, that's definitely what it was and understood to be. And so that's kind of the reason why we didn't cover that in the first place. But I spent a bunch of time now talking about this, and I just wanted to get out in front of it in some ways with Doomsday and Secret Wars coming up. But there are a few different things I wanted to touch on with that the Russos have said. The first being that Doomsday and Secret Wars are inspired by both the 1980s and the 2010s, as well as then their own thing for stories for Secret Wars. Now, what does that mean? I think there are certain things that are very much Secret Wars, and more. It's such a big storyline that you kind of have to include those things. First off, they've already started it up. This idea of incursions, the universe ending, those are key. Those are key to the storyline. Whether or not it's how they do the incursions, and they've already called them incursions, so that's like a 2010s thing. But this idea of the universe is ending, the multiverse is collapsing in, and everybody's being taken, who's still left around, is being taken to this other location. I think that still has to exist. Doom being kind of an antagonist throughout the whole thing, that definitely is an element from both of them. And while both of them deal with like the Beyonder as well, I don't know that we're going to see that element in the movie. But makes sense to have Doom. And I think from there, we might see some fairly large deviations from what we've already seen. Though, or from what, not what we've already seen, but what's in the comics. I think there are elements that would work well, such as at the ends of Doomsday, you have a group of heroes who make it to Battle World, not necessarily, or if they don't call it Battle World, the void at the end of the universe, where they they're going to fight against Doom. Doom has control over those lands, is very much doing stuff like that, and everybody's kind of accepting it. And these characters are gonna be like, no, no, we don't want to accept it. We know that there should be more, so we're gonna go up against Doom. A lot of those, I think, are gonna be maybe focused at least the start of the main like core MCU characters, and then we'll pull in select characters from other universes like the Fox X-Men, or like maybe other Fantastic Fours, or even this new Fantastic Four if they don't show up and don't play a major role in like Doomsday and are already integrated. The other thing that they said, and this one I thought was equally as interesting, is that when they shot Endgame, like that was the end of a story, whereas Doomsday and Secret Wars are kind of the beginning of a story, which is kind of different to think about, because you think about what we saw in between there, it feels like they've done some work to lead up, but I think thematically it makes a fair amount of sense. Right now, the Avengers aren't a thing. We know that Sam Wilson, Captain America, he's going to make it a thing. He's going to create a new Avengers team coming up here, because that's what we got from Captain America Brave New World. But there's no Avengers team currently. What is there, an event, something that's going to bring that to fruition, or is he going to do it separately from that? I think we're going to see him develop it separately, but that's kind of getting off what I really should be my main point here. My main point is we've had a very scattered universe. Like Ant-Man's story ties into Kang, which was supposed to be one of the big story elements, but everything's kind of been scattered, and I think that's been an intentional thing. Whether or not that has worked, I think there's a pretty solid argument that in some cases it hasn't worked, because they tried to connect it a bit too much. But everything kind of needed to be its own story, and it needed to show and maybe delve into that common theme a bit more of everybody is separated. But I think looking back on it, we might remember it a little bit more fondly, looking at that theme for it, and that idea of loss, and that yes, things have changed. And now people are going to have to come back together. It's kind of almost like that Avengers movie moment again, where you have to form a new team. But this isn't going to just be forming one team. I think we're going to see several different teams formed, and I think that's why potentially Fantastic Four First Steps kicks off Phase 6, because that is a formed team. That is going to be our first, second, like really formed team. And I would argue even that the first formed team that we saw, the Eternals, that was scattering and breaking and at odds the whole time. And so I think with Fantastic Four, it's going to be that first step of kind of building back up towards stuff, because not only are we going to have the Fantastic Four as a team, we might start to see a Young Avengers team show up on like Disney Plus, or they could call them Champions, show up on Disney Plus. We're going to get a new Avengers team, and we know that the X-Men are coming. So we're getting all these different teams formed together, and so it's going to be a new story, kind of a new branching path going forward. And the Russos did talk a little bit about how potentially the movies do need kind of that more or tighter interwoven story holding it together. And I'm going to do a video probably tomorrow on what stories we should be getting post. Actually, no, I already kind of did a video on this when there was the rumor of, like, could Sony be looking to sell Spider-Man back? But how you could potentially have different pockets of the MCU dealing with different things, and each of them could have their own big bad that maybe eventually plays all together into one really huge thing. Like, you could have the X-Men facing off against Sinister. You could have maybe an Ultron come back and tie into, I guess, Nimrod, for example, or something like that, or the Sentinels. But that could be teased through Ultron coming back as a big bad that the Avengers are having to face off against. With what we have going on in Daredevil Born Again, you could have that kind of lead into the persecution of mutants and ground level heroes having to kind of deal and work with the mutants in there. And you could have all of those things come together in an Age of Apocalypse, but each of them would have their own kind of villain that it would lead towards. And I think that could be an interesting way to do it. Give these different storylines, different story focuses, kind of that new beginning into a new, bigger, grander world that then comes together. The different threads intertwines for a big event every 3-4 years, 4 years, let's say, maybe even 5, and then branches out again and comes back and interweaves. You have new characters who join and become the more important characters in the story. But those are kind of some of the rumors and news bits around Doomsday and Secret Wars that have come out recently. Greg and I do talk about this more, or different aspects of it, on the 10 Minute Marvel podcast. So check that out as well. Let me know your thoughts just on these new quotes from the Russos down in the comment section below. And if you enjoy this content, please give the video a thumbs up. I did mention the podcast. You can find that here on YouTube. Click onto the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and we appreciate everybody who has subscribed and is checking out the videos. Click that notification bell to know when new videos come out, and then click on that podcast tab to listen to the latest episode of 10 Minute Marvel, or you can search for 10 Minute Marvel wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcasts from. But with that, see you next time.